Allen Lund Company has new offices in Ogden, Utah and Indianapolis, Indiana. Check allenlund.com to reach them.
OOIDA, representing America's truckers since 1973, presents Landline Now with your host, Mark Redding.
A lot of people are going to need help over the coming days in the aftermath of Hurricane Helene. Among the groups helping those people is the American Logistics Aid Network, or ALLEN. Kathy Fulton of ALLEN explains how truck drivers can be of assistance. A growing number of U.S. lawmakers in the House are speaking up against the EPA's new heavy truck emission standards that are set to take effect in 2032. Representative Dan Newhouse of Washington State is one of them. He joins the show to share his concerns with us. We'll have more coverage of Hurricane Helene's impact on Florida and elsewhere with Jamie Jones and Mark Schremer of Landline Magazine. And finally, truckers are talking with Marty Ellis about something we haven't heard a lot of in the trucking industry before: age discrimination and the problems some truckers are having with it. I'll talk with the man who drives the spirit of the American trucker. But first, the news with Scott Thompson.
Thanks, Mark. We are tracking the aftermath of Hurricane Helene, which made landfall as a Category 4 hurricane in Florida on Thursday evening. And while the extent of the damage is still being evaluated, we can be sure there are going to be a lot of people in need over the coming weeks and months. And among those on the ground helping those people is the American Logistics Aid Network, or ALLEN. Kathy Fulton is the executive director of ALLEN, and she joins us on the line now. Kathy, thanks for joining us.
Hey, Scott. Good to be back with you all.
And I know it's early, Kathy, but you are really tuned into what's happening on the ground in Florida and elsewhere there. What are you hearing right now about the state of things out there?
Yeah, it's pretty bad in a lot of places, right? The storm came ashore really strong. This thing set records from, hundreds of miles away for storm surge and flooding and things like that. So, and it's still going. I don't think I've ever seen a tropical storm travel this far inland and maintain its strength. So it's chugging across the southeast now. This is the first time that I can remember that, inland landlocked states like Tennessee and Kentucky have activated their emergency management teams for a hurricane, for a tropical event. It's wild.
Yeah, and I've just been following the news from afar here, and, we're talking about massive power outages, of course, flooding. This is going to be a situation that's going to span weeks, maybe months for a lot of people who have been most affected by this. For those who are not familiar with ALLEN and what you do, what is help going to look like from the perspective of your organization over the coming days and weeks? Kind of walk me through the stages of response, if you would.
Yeah, you mentioned the power outages and the debris and the flooding. All of that disrupts people's normal way of life, right? Not to mention, homes are flooded and trees are down on people's houses. And so they can't get out and get to the places that they normally would to get, however they're going to eat or stay hydrated. So our organization works with a network of nonprofits. It's part of the American Logistics Aid Network name, right? We're working with a network of nonprofits who are on the ground, cutting down those trees, who are bringing hot meals to people, who are, out there with the water and cleaning up houses for people. So for us, that means how do we help those nonprofits get the supplies into the region where they're going to be doing the work, right? That could mean truckloads of tarp. Right, we're working on a request to support that. Could mean bringing ice to locations so that it can be distributed, and then that trailer is going to get turned into storage for a cook site. Right, all of those things are within our network's capabilities and our nonprofit activities, and we help with the logistics of that. We help them find the trucking and find the warehouse space and find all of the material handling that they need to do their work.
And the people of Florida, again, this looks like it could end up being an historic storm here. So we're kind of, talking about a different situation just in terms of severity, but the people of Florida are no strangers to hurricanes, obviously. And you've worked in this area before. I would imagine, and tell me kind of how it works here, but I would imagine that when something like this happens, you've got a number of organizations standing up and, going to these areas and responding pretty quickly. This, again, could be a different situation, of course, because of the severity of it. But I assume you're already seeing those pieces kind of fall into place here, right?
We are. And we've actually, been watching this storm even before it became a storm and then rapidly intensified. So we've been working on this for about a week now with our team. Our nonprofit staged just slightly outside of the area, and then they're moving in today as best they can. I know I've seen the videos of all of the debris on major interstates and roadways, but they're going to start moving just as soon as they can to get help to the people in need. You mentioned the fact that Florida is no stranger to tropical events. This particular area of Florida, the Big Bend and the Perry area where it came ashore, this is their third hurricane in 13 months, 14 months, maybe even less than that. So unfortunately, they're used to working in this area. They know the people. They know where they need to set up. They know where that need is going to be greatest. But also, it's just compounded, right? These people they just keep getting hit over and over again, and it's not a ritzy part of the country to begin with. So there are some unique vulnerabilities that are compounded by this third storm.
Let's talk about helping here. We've talked before about the truck driving community and what a helpful community it is, people wanting to help in any way they can here. For truck drivers out there who may be listening to this and maybe thinking, hey, I want to help, what can they do, and what does that help look like when they actually do get on the ground and help out there? Yeah,
the truck driving community is amazing and very generous. What can they do to help? Number one, keep themselves safe, right? We know that. That's, priority number one. But beyond that, when you're ready to help, just reach out to us. Let us know, hey, I'm going to be moving from, location A to location B. I've got a couple of spare pallet positions. Where can I stop and pick stuff up and deliver it? That's priority number one, is getting the good stuff there. Priority number two is keeping the bad stuff out. So if, somebody contacts you and they're like, hey, we just collected a bunch of stuff and it's in trash bags, can you haul it for us? Don't do that, because it's going to create more mess for the communities than they have capacity to deal with right now. They've got enough limbs and debris to clean up. They don't need more to clean up from trash that's coming in from outside. So, we can help connect you for resources. Reach out to us on our website, alanaid.org, ALANAID.org. It's pretty simple. There's a form you can fill out. There's a phone number to call. There's ways on our website that you can reach out to us. That's the best way to get us, because we're all super busy helping right now, right?
Yeah, for sure. And there's going to be a lot of help needed over the coming weeks and months. ALANAID.org is that website. Kathy, we really appreciate your time, and thank you for everything you're doing out there.
Yeah, thank you, Scott.
Our thanks to Kathy Fulton of Allen. For Landline Now, I'm Scott Thompson. Mark, back to you.
Thanks, Scott. Next, U.S. Representative Dan Newhouse discusses efforts to oppose the EPA's new emission standards for heavy trucks. We'll have more coverage of Hurricane Helene's impact on Florida and elsewhere with Jamie Jones and Mark Schrimmer of Landline Magazine, and Marty Ellis of The Spirit of the American Trucker discusses age discrimination in the trucking industry. We'll be back in just a moment with more of the show. I'm Mark Rettig, and this is Landline Now.
Thanks for listening. Be sure to like and subscribe. If you want more content, go to landline.media to get updated news, information, and archived editions of our show. Once again, that's landline.media.
Capital Reman is your leading source for quality remanufactured engines and components. Capital Reman stands ready to serve all OOIDA members to help reduce costly engine repairs or replacement. Visit capitalreman.com today and use code OOIDA10 to save.
Penske is the trusted source for quality used trucks. Whether you search our website, call our sales staff, or bid at our online auction, you are sure to find the right used truck for your business. Visit PenskeUsedTrucks.com to view our inventory and learn more.
It's tested and proven. Burn 2.1% less fuel when you balance all wheel ends with Centromatic. Call 800-523-8473 to get the OOIDA discount.
A growing number of U.S. lawmakers in the House especially are speaking up against the Environmental Protection Agency's new emission standards for heavy trucks that are set to take effect in 2032. Representative Dan Newhouse of Washington State is one of them. The congressman, who also chairs the Congressional Western Caucus, recently penned an op-ed with OOIDA President Todd Spencer about the emission standards, and he joins us now to talk about it. Chairman Newhouse, welcome to the program.
Thank you, Scott. It's a pleasure to be with you to talk about something that's so important to people all across the United States.
Yeah, and we've got a lot of points to hit here, so we'll jump right in, starting with this piece that you penned along with OOIDA President Todd Spencer for the Washington Times, expressing opposition to the EPA's emission rules for heavy trucks. For those who may not have read it, and you hit a lot of points in this piece, but can you kind of walk us through the issues you have with the rules and what you're trying to convey to people?
Absolutely. And again, I appreciate you having me on to talk about this because I'm chairman of something called the Congressional Western Caucus, as you say, and we focus on those things that are important to rural America, the Western United States in particular, but rural issues touch every state in the country. And this issue of the mandates for electronic trucks is going to have a huge impact on communities across the country. So we are all in on anything that we can do here in Congress to encourage changing this mandate because of some of the things that we talked about in that op-ed piece. This is truly, by this administration, I would call this a forced green transition. And like I said, it will truly cripple rural and Western America. It's basically a forced mandate, forcing trucks to become electric vehicles. And that's something that is just, I'm a farmer in central Washington State. In my humble opinion, this is just not a practical solution. There are so many issues with this. First of all, I hate mandates to begin with. Having the government tell me exactly what I can and can't buy, that is just that goes against my grain, for one thing. But beyond my personal problems with it, the technology that we have available to us just does not compare to what truckers can reliably depend upon with diesel engines. Electric battery-operated trucks are expensive. They're costly to buy, expensive to operate. And the infrastructure is just not in place to where these are practical for anybody that's serious about running a profitable business. And so this is something that we definitely have to push back against and do all we can to overturn.
Yeah, and as you mentioned there, the lack of practicality, I think, is probably the biggest red flag. It just isn't feasible or practical right now as we are talking right here. I just want to make one thing really clear, too, because OOIDA makes a statement quite a bit. You are not against clean air or even emission standards. I would imagine your opposition is the way, right, in which it's being done. And you kind of talked about your opposition to mandates in general there. But is that an accurate statement? It's the way it's being done that you take issue with.
Well, like I said, I'm a farmer, and I've always said that farmers are the original conservationists because we depend on the land for our livelihoods. And absolutely, we want to be good stewards of the environment because that's our future and that's our family's future, so that family farms can continue on into the future. So you're right. I want clean air, absolutely. That's not the issue here, but it's the way the government is going about doing this, not taking into consideration the practical side of forcing the trucking industry to go EV. Well, for instance, you guys know this way better than I do because people that are listening are in the business, but a diesel truck typically can run 1,000 miles on a full tank of fuel. I'm told that a battery operated truck may have between 200 and 500 miles of range before they have to stop and charge. So that's problematic. But like I said before, the cost of these vehicles is tremendous, and so the large number of small business truckers that make up a huge part of the industry. My concern is that they're not going to be able to afford to make this mandated transition, and it just has a devastating impact on the industry as a whole. Not only forcing people out of business, but increasing the cost of goods to consumers all around the country. So I just think that this is, like I said, not very well thought through. Certainly the goal is admirable, I guess, if you want to say that we all want clean air, but this is not the way to go about achieving that.
Congress does have some power here, obviously, and I know some lawmakers are trying to wield it, you included. Can you talk a bit about House Joint Resolution 133 and what you, the Congressional Western Caucus, and others who share your concerns are doing right now to put a halt to these EPA regulations for heavy trucks that are in the works?
Absolutely, Scott. As I said, the Congressional Western Caucus, we are over 100 members strong. Several of our members have been very active on this issue. In fact, this summer I joined Representative Randy Feenstra from Iowa, leading a charge demanding from the EPA that they repeal this EV mandate. Congressman Russ Fulcher from Idaho introduced legislation to accomplish that, to repeal this, essentially what is the mandate. It's the Phase 3 gas emissions standards for heavy-duty vehicles. So that legislation he introduced, and good news, in fact, the timing of your podcast is really good. That just passed out of the Energy and Commerce Committee this week. So that legislation is on track, moving forward, and we're very optimistic that we can get that to the floor and get it passed soon. So, we're doing what we can legislatively to reverse this mandate. If we can't accomplish it through the legislative process, what's going to have to happen, I believe, is a future administration that would be more open to more practical solutions is going to have to reverse this decision. The current administration is hell-bent on doing this, and by themselves are not going to change course. So it either has to be legislatively or a change in administration.
I know for a fact, actually, that the folks at EPA have heard all these concerns that you're expressing and many others that are being expressed out there. I'm not going to ask you to get into their heads per se, but do you get a sense about why they're forging ahead with this despite the very real world concerns being expressed? Do you have conversations with them behind the scenes? What sense do you get about their determination on this?
That's a really good question, Scott. And you're right. I can't get in their heads, and I can't pretend to totally understand the rationale. I'm from the state of Washington, and we have very similar goals that the state government has put in place that California does, and what we're talking about here on the federal level. It's almost, gosh, how would you put this? It's almost a religion to where people are just so convinced that this has to be done in order to lower the carbon emissions from our transportation system in order to save the planet. I've never seen the government, whether state, local, or federal, in any situation, choose correctly when we're talking about picking winners and losers as far as technology, options to move forward on how to improve things, in this case, the environment through our transportation network. I think there's a lot of things the federal government can do, but overriding the supply and demand system that we have relied on for so long in this country that has worked successfully. Consumers will make the right choices if given the opportunity. Technology can do some amazing things, but forcing through government mandate consumers to buy any particular product, assuming that in this case EVs are the answer, is government always gets it wrong. There are so many other options out there that I think if we allow entrepreneurs and very clever people that are working on these things unfettered access to technological advances, I think we would do much better. We could accomplish a cleaner environment, cleaner air much sooner than relying on mandates from the federal government. So that's my frustration. And like I said, it's a religion to a lot of people that we have to go this direction, but I just think it's EVs may be the answer for some applications. Absolutely, it's short commutes. Maybe if you live in an area that you have an easy access to a plug-in to recharge your battery and only take 20 or 30 mile trip a day. Over-the-road trucks does not seem to fit. So I think we need to be much more creative and allow the systems that we have in place to work. And that would be a much better solution than what the government is coming up with here.
Yeah, it's clear the free market is going to figure this out, just maybe not on the EPA's timeline. But in the meantime, we'll wait and see how that pans out here. We're always telling our listeners to make sure that their voices are heard, to reach out to their lawmakers in Washington, D.C., to make sure that they understand this issue and other issues that are obviously important to truck drivers out there. Kind of with that in mind, as we close things out here, is there anything you'd like to say to our truck driving listeners out there as it pertains to these EPA emission rules, or maybe anything else out there?
Well, I would just say many members of Congress recognize that over-the-road truckers are the backbone of rural America. Certainly our economy, our supply chains, they're essential. They couldn't exist without them. So we depend on them. And that's why it's critical that we support our truckers in the halls of Congress. Absolutely. I want them to know that there are many of us that have their back, that we are looking out for their best interest, because it's our best interest to be able to deliver the goods and services that we need in this country in an affordable manner. And we need to unleash truly the potential of American energy so that we can have the cleanest, most affordable fuel systems. We need to work to drive down fuel prices, make sure that people can be competitive. That is one of the major inflation drivers in this country. And so there's just so many things that we at the Western Caucus are working on to reduce the amount of restrictions that we're seeing on the oil and gas industries, certainly development throughout the country, that we literally have the answer to our fuel challenges right underneath our feet. So, as I told you, I'm a farmer. I rely on trucking to make sure that my business can be successful, and I want to make sure that those truckers who, like I said, are the backbone of our economy can be successful so that our nation can be successful.
Well said, Congressman. I know your time is valuable. Really appreciate you spending some time talking with us about this issue. And thank you also for taking on this issue on behalf of truck drivers out there. I know they appreciate it. But thank you for your time. We really do appreciate it.
Well, I appreciate that, Scott. And I hope part of this message is that the truck drivers of America weigh in with their members of Congress so that those of us here in Washington, D.C. understand how important of an issue this is.
And the easiest way to do that is through OOIDA's fightingfortruckers.com website. In fact, the top issue posted on the page right now is what OOIDA is calling the EPA's assault on truckers. Our thanks one more time to Congressman Newhouse for his time. It's time for us to take a break, but there's more Landline Now on the other side of it.
Truckdown.com. Whenever you have a breakdown, you need Truckdown.com. 24/7 access to 40,000 verified heavy-duty repair vendors nationwide.
Repair secured.
Load assured. Truckdown.com.
Firestone tires are for more of everything, with more durability for more miles and more confidence in your fleet. Firestone's tested tires help fleets save with value where it matters most. Learn more at bridgestonenationalfleet.com/4moremiles.
Dispatch, I picked up that load of steel, so I'm ready to roll.
Sounds good. Remember, we're getting paid by weight, so make sure to use a cat scale.
I wouldn't weigh anywhere else.
Forget miss accuracy, weigh your truck on a cat scale.
Landline now, welcome back. It's been a busy week for trucking news, as it often is, and we'll spend a little time now going over some of those stories with Jamie Jones and Mark Schirmer of Landline Magazine. Jamie, Mark, good to see you.
Hey, good to be here.
Yeah, thanks for having us.
We've got a special guest, Ollie,
yes.
the dog, in the
Ollie,
studio.
the O-line, yes.
There he is. All right. We spoke earlier with Kathy Fulton of the American Logistics Aid Network about their efforts in response to Hurricane Helene. I know both of you have covered plenty of severe storms, hurricanes, tropical storms throughout the years, again, as it relates to the trucking industry. I just wanted to get your thoughts here, and we're still, again, we're waiting on the extent of the damage there in the Southeast. But, Jamie, just your initial thoughts on what you're seeing and hearing out there.
You know, it's been a couple years since we had one with the oomph, if you will, that Helene brought along with it. And one thing that I really think Landline does a particularly really good job on is we understand the different stages that these natural disasters bring, especially for the trucking industry. You know, when it's coming in, are they reversing lanes? Is there an evacuation order? You know, what are those things? So we know the stages that we have to cover. And we also know when you have things from the National Hurricane Center saying that Helene, and this is as of this morning, Friday morning, is still producing historic and catastrophic flooding. Yeah. So sometimes it's already downgraded to a tropical storm again. So it hit, the storm surge is over. You know, it lost its oomph real quick, but it is definitely drowning a lot of the country right now with the rain. And that's what we're going to continue to watch because it's literally the trickle effect when you're on floods. So we have to watch that and see where the emergencies are, how bad the destruction is, and where truckers who are always willing to be, you know, help out in those emergencies, you know, where we can point them to help in the recovery after something like this.
Yeah, and the recovery, this is a situation where it's going to be not days, not weeks, but we're probably looking at months for a lot of folks out there in terms of the flooding and the cleanup and everything else that goes along with it. Mark, again, I know you've been watching this, and I know you've covered a number of these events over the years as well.
Yeah.
Your thoughts?
Well, one of the things I think when you talk about trucking for this, like you mentioned, you know, the recovery, and Jamie mentioned we have so many drivers that are willing to help in these situations. And when we tie back to some of this stuff, you know, you've heard in these type of storms, power outages may be for days.
Or weeks, I'm seeing in some cases.
Yes, 100%.
And, you know, when we talk about that electric vehicle discussion, electric trucks and all of that, this is one of those things when OOIDA Executive Vice President Louis Pugh is testifying in front of Congress, he's talking about these type of situations, and you know, some of these things aren't practical all the time, and we just have to think about you know, those elements of it. You know, we're using these diesel trucks to come in and you know, provide a service, and you know, maybe if they were relying on electric, that it might not be able to work in a situation like this. So we have to think about you know, those aspects, and you know, it's just another reason to realize, you know, a lot of times people get annoyed by these big trucks out on the road, and that they forget that everything around them is delivered by them. But you know, in these type of instances, you know, a lot of drivers kind of end up being, you know, heroes during a lot of this stuff, and we've seen pet rescues during these type of things, and truckers have been involved in it. So tip of the hat to, you know, all the truckers that help out in these type of situations.
Well, and I think the part that we do better than the national media, the mainstream media, is going to run from this as soon as it's no longer a decent headline. Yeah. You know, they're not going to look at it at the molecular level that we are, and how people are having to recover and what's necessary. I mean, Katrina and Rita when that happened, that taught us so much about it's not necessarily the storm. It's not necessarily that, when the Weather Channel's standing out there in the rain, in the wind, leaning sideways. That's not the story. The story is what happens after.
Right.
And that's when you have things like, basic human needs, water, ice, things like that. And when it's particularly catastrophic, we've had to look into the requests of different areas because they have actually put requests out before Katrina and Rita. And COVID were actually 2 times that they put calls out asking for refrigerated trailers for rolling morgues. So, and that's, as heartbreaking as that is, that's the kind of information that we are going to gather so that you don't have to. And then the other thing, we really do look out for the OOIDA members in the affected areas and, try and make sure that they're okay and see what's going on. So,
and we'll certainly be reaching out to them in the days and weeks to come too to see how things look out there. Landline.media for updates, and I want to mention the American Logistics Aid Network one more time. ALANAID.org is the website there. If you want to help out, it's a great resource. They're doing great stuff on the ground there.
And real quick on that, that is the place to go if you are not already a FEMA approved carrier. You need to go to ALAN. That's where you could potentially help immediately because going through the process to become a FEMA-approved carrier takes time. It takes time and it's a lot of red tape.
Yep. ALANAID.org is that website again. Let's turn to less serious but still important news from the regulatory world of trucking. We have the Federal Motor Carrier Safety Administration accepting feedback about its guidance documents. Before we get into what some of the comments have been so far, Mark, including those from OOIDA, let's start with why FMCSA is doing this and what might come of it.
Well, it was mandated from Congress a few years back that every 5 years that they take a look at all of the guidance documents that they have and review them and figure out if any of them need updated, if any of them need just eliminated. And, when we're talking about the number of them, we're talking about 1,300 guidance documents from the FMCSA right now. So I don't think it'd be a big surprise that probably some of those need updated, probably some of them need taken out. And, Congress did this for obvious reasons, that we need some sort of review process to look at these and which ones, give the public an opportunity to comment and say, hey, we should take another look at this one, get this one removed. So, there's been, I think it was like a 60-day or 45-day comment period on this. And so, that's where they're at. And so we're at that point where, at that next 5-year mark.
It's really, I find guidance to be a really unfortunate term, though, for what this is, because you have that giant green book of regulations.
Yeah.
And, cops, motor carriers, everybody is reading these regulations. They're like, well, but how does this work in practical application?
Yeah.
So they put out that guidance on how to enforce these regulations. So in a way, they are carrying the weight of the law with them. And that's what makes it really scary because they don't go through the same process that a true regulation does. The agency just cooks it up, puts it out for comment, and like, here you go.
Yeah.
Yeah. And you think about, the difficulty, and I know we know it, how hard of a job for a truck driver has, but you talk about this huge green book.
Oh, yeah.
And you have to know all of that. Now we also need to know 1,300 guidance documents to help interpret all of these things in this giant book. And I mean, that's a lot there.
100%. And, the part... Forgive me for being greedy here, but, that's really nice that you're looking over these guidance documents. But at what point are we going to go through the big green book of regulations and see what is slightly outdated, or horribly outdated or no longer necessary? It seems like the agency, Congress, it's just we pile on more regulations instead of ever taking a hard look and seeing what can come back.
Yeah. And I want to go through some of the comments that were received there, and we can kind of focus on OOIDA's comments if you like here. I know personal conveyance was one. Even before the comments were being posted, we knew that there were going to be a number of personal conveyance comments involved there. Mark, you went through all of these. What were you seeing out there? And maybe you can also talk about OOIDA's comments.
Yeah. So regarding personal conveyance, the big one, CVSA in recent years, I think twice in the last 2 or 3 years, has petitioned the agency to change its guidance on that and set some sort of mile limit, or type of, make it a little more confined of how they define personal conveyance. And those petitions have largely been rejected. And one of the things, so we knew when they opened this up, guidance for review, that was going to be one of the hot topics, and of course it has been. And you've had some divide. You have some people from law enforcement or different that want black and white. This is how many miles, and this is what you can do with personal conveyance. But you've heard OIDA defends that right of their personal vehicle when they're not not working, not on the clock, to be able to use it and to drive it. So yeah, that's going to be one of those divided ones, and I'm curious to see what happens with it. But based off of recent history, FMCSA has continued to defend it and has rejected those petitions. So I have no reason that nothing has come out of this that I would think that would make them change their mind at this point. But we'll wait and see.
We shall see. Yeah, and other things that OOIDA mentioned, and we won't have time to get into all of them here, but the Certified Medical Examiner's Handbook, we're talking the ELD exemptions, broker reform. These are all things that OOIDA pointed out, taking issue with some of the guidance documents there. And I don't know if you want to kind of hammer on one of those.
Well, I guess the thing of looping them in is like what Jamie was saying earlier, that these guidance documents don't go through the rulemaking process. So they're not supposed to have the same force as regulation. But a lot of times where you get sleep apnea, some of those things where they're being interpreted wrong, and they're just enforcing them like it's a regulation. And your neck size is this, so you have to have this machine. You can't drive. You can't do this. And there's no regulation on the books. Nothing's gone through that says any of those things, but they're being used the same way. So that's where you get dangerous, and there are quite a few of those that OIDA mentions in his comments.
And on the flip side, guidance is really a good thing, because when you have people who maybe aren't very versed on reading a regulation and the legalese and everything like that. Yeah. I mean, it is kind of a roadmap for uniform enforcement around the country, and that's a good thing. But it's just the problem that they'll sneak some stuff in some of these guidance documents, and once the camel has its nose under the tent, it's over. And so it's these guidance documents, as good as they can be equally bad.
Is that an Arkansas saying? The camel with its nose under the tent?
Maybe.
Okay. I don't know how many camels are in Arkansas. That's interesting.
You know what? An old landline. Here's a plug, because we're going into our 50th anniversary. I've been looking through old landlines. Apparently, it's illegal in Arizona to kill camels.
Oh. Okay.
That was in an old landline, and I was like, okay.
If you take away one thing from our conversation here over the past several minutes, let it be that. Real quick, we don't have a whole lot of time, Jamie, but I know you wanted to talk elections real quick, and also probably Raz, Mark, and I about our favorite NFL teams.
Yeah, the ones that aren't 3-0.
Yes. Says the Chiefs
that aren't going for their third Super Bowl.
Says a spoiled Chiefs fan. Yeah.
Yeah, it's been a long, cold 12 months since the Super Bowl. No,
you can call me a lot of things, but you can't, call me unloyal.
No.
So I'm
or a winner.
Hey.
I mean,
who's talking?
Oh, wait. That's right. I really stepped into that one, didn't I?
It's a lot of fun, and, everybody. And if you have a Chiefs truck, be sure and let us know, because we'll put it in the magazine. I'll put a plug up there.
Raiders trucks too?
No,
Raiders trucks.
I'm the managing editor.
It's Raider Nation.
We probably have to win something first, Mark, to get that honor. We'll have to leave it there. Jamie, congratulations on all your NFL success.
Yeah, there you go.
If you want to read more trucking news from Jamie and Mark, head to landline.media. And with that, we'll take a quick break. Landline Now returns in just a moment.
Ready to make more money? Use a better load board. For a limited time, get 50% off Truckstop Load Board Pro. Just go to truckstop.com/go and enter promo code READY2024 when you purchase Load Board Pro.
Are you tired of the IRS following you around like a dark cloud? Call 888-557-4020 and get your life back.
If you're running ultra-low sulfur diesel in your vehicle, make sure you are prepared and protected all winter long with Howe's Diesel Treat, the #1 anti-gel product in North America from the 100-plus year trusted brand Howe's Products.
Since you started, what you've loved about trucking is the freedom. Heading out on your favorite route, a good driving song, and thinking about truck insurance. Well, maybe not that last one. That's why we're here. At OOIDA, we have a full range of truck insurance products, expert advice, and great customer service, helping you get the right coverage for your operation. Go to OOIDA.com, because your job is to drive. Our job is to help with everything else.
Landline Now. Welcome back. Every week, we check in with Marty Ellis, who drives OOIDA's tour truck, the Spirit of the American Trucker. Marty just finished with an event at a unique truck stop. However, his schedule means he didn't make it this year to an event he's attended every single year for 2 decades. Meanwhile, truckers are talking with him about something we haven't heard a lot about in trucking before: age discrimination and the problems that some truckers are having with it.
Carolina west to Denver, up to Bangor, west to Austin, coast to coast, sea to sea, sail on, sail on.
Well, Marty, how are you?
I am lovely, Mark, and you?
I'm doing great, doing great. You've been to a couple of truck shows, haven't you? Or at least one.
Yeah, we were basically at a trucking event, the Road Angel Truckers Center Jamboree. Was the 20th and the 21st. Well, that's when we were there. And they're kind of truck-centric, as I like to call them, as they're really based around truck drivers and the trucking community that way. I was listening to some of their, mission statement about helping drivers on the road and that's how it started, and that is definitely how they are wanting to keep it going. So I think that's a pretty cool goal. It's they're doing a good job with it. Can it always be bigger and better? Absolutely. But, I think they do a good job with what they have, and I hope that folks can stop through there, check them out, and see what they have to offer.
Yeah, it's a neat place, and they do a lot of neat stuff there, and just the whole concept is really good.
It really is, yep.
Well, in the meanwhile, you've moved on here, and I guess you've made your way to Virginia. Where are you at right now?
At the Petro in Ruffine, Virginia, White's Travel Center. I guess it's still kind of known as that. So here through the 22nd, and they are I-81 and I-64, exit 205, showing that they have 725 parking spots. I don't know, for some reason I thought they had grown above that, but, maybe I'm mistaken. And of course, they have a Quaker Steak and Lube restaurant, Popeyes, Burger King, Subway, and a Papa John's. So pretty well decked out. They have a big store inside. So there's a lot of things for the guys to come. And of course, plenty of parking. So that's always a plus for the drivers out there.
Absolutely. Well, let's talk about some of the stuff going on in the industry right now. And I know that right now we are kind of in the middle of convoy season when we have all these benefit convoys. And that brought something to your mind, didn't it?
Yeah, it's this last weekend was the convoy up there for Special Olympics up in South Dakota. And this was the first year I'd been missing it for basically 20 years. So it kind of was a sad thing for me, but a happy thing. I think overall, the convoy went off well. They had a record number of trucks in on Friday night, so that's always great right there in Sioux Falls. And, maybe a little few hiccups here and there, but, sometimes when the changing of the guard goes, they need to kind of have us old dogs get away from it a little bit, so we're not kind of always looking and saying, I might not have done that, or, you shouldn't be doing this. Or so I think it's a good thing, that we let the younger ones come up and take advantage of trying to help out themselves. And so I think that's a good thing.
Well, I'm glad that that's still going on and still being successful. It's a very, very good thing for a good cause, and one of a lot of these convoys going on right now.
There were. I was sitting there looking at several, the one up there in Canada, Ontario went on, and it sounded like everybody had a good time and raised a lot of money for Special Olympics. And, of course, that's always the biggest, gain out there.
Okay. Well, something else that you mentioned that was on your mind here is age discrimination. And you got my attention with that one because it's not something I hear about often in trucking. And I guess you've run across some instance of this. What's going on there, Marty?
Yeah, here lately I've had a couple of folks stop in and ask, about what are the rules and laws and all that. And, to be honest, I don't know a whole lot about how age discrimination works and how, you can basically find out if it is age discrimination or, I don't know. But we have had a couple people come in over 70 years old, and they're having a hard time getting on with companies that they want to get on with. And they're being told that, that the insurance companies won't take them on. And I don't have any specifics for insurance companies or companies, for hiring or not hiring. Right now, some of the guys don't feel a whole lot comfortable giving out that information, but I'm hoping that, we can get some of that information to kind of really find out what it's all about and what's happening. One thing we have to be very careful about, even if we are older, first of all, we're very useful, and as long as you have a good driving record, you would think that they would be fine out there and you can pass the physical and all that. One thing that I worry about with some of the guys, are they telling you that they have a really good record and maybe they don't, or, you don't know what's going on. That's why we kind of need the whole story before we can call it a big problem out in our industry right now. But, I think that we should be at least keeping an eye on this.
It's interesting. You mentioned there, of course, that there is a DOT physical. And I think if you want to know if somebody is physically capable of doing the job, that's the thing that's going to tell you that. And that's what's kind of curious about this to me. A lot of those older drivers are some of the safest we have on the road. And if they've passed the physical, I wonder what the problem is.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's with me. I don't have any problem, with, having to pass a physical as far as, the necessity of that. But I do worry about, that we are wanting to not have our older drivers out there, because I'm with you. I think it's part of the safest grouping of drivers. And we sure as heck don't want to take them out of the industry, because they have so much knowledge that they can pass on to the newer drivers out there. And also, basically, most of those guys are very conscious about what they're doing and conscious about how they're treating others out here on the roads. So we sure don't want to lose that.
Absolutely not. I don't know. Insurance companies usually work based on risk and what the risks are. And while I can understand with the general population maybe having a concern about someone maybe being too old to drive a car, but I always look at truckers as being something different because, of course, it is different. They're professionals, and they also have a huge amount of experience out there on the road, and that really does count for something.
Yeah, and it should. And that's, but, like I said, I think you're right. I think the insurance companies, if they are doing this, they really need to rethink that totally.
Okay. Well, we just got about 30 seconds left, Marty. You want to tell us where you're going next?
Yeah, we'll be heading over to the TA in Knoxville, Tennessee. That's the TA West. We'll be there the 30th of September through the 1st of October. That's I-40 and 75, exit 369 there.
Okay. Any final words before you ride off into the sunset?
Hey, guys, just be kind to one another and give that guy next to you a break.
Brothers of the highway, children of the wind.
Once again, that was Marty Ellis, who drives OOIDA's tour truck, the Spirit of the American Trucker. You can find Marty's next stop on our show and every day at our website, landlinenow.com. That includes truck stops, truck shows, and other special events across the country. Again, you can find that at our website, landlinenow.com. That's our program for today. I'm Mark Reddick, and this is Landline Now.
Thanks for listening. Be sure to like and subscribe. If you want more content, go to landline.media to get updated news, information, and archived editions of our show. Once again, that's landline.media.
Control your toll costs and eliminate tolling headaches with Prepass Tolls. Prepass Tolls means toll volume discounts. Just one invoice for all tolls and fewer violations. Call 877-878-5970 or go to prepass.com.
I'm a dad,
a son,
a husband,
wife.
I'm a writer,
photographer.
I farm.
I'm a veteran.
I love old cars, fishing,
my kids,
Chrome, and I am
a professional truck driver.
And together we are OOIDA.
OOIDA was founded by truckers to stand up and speak on behalf of truckers. We've done that by combining the individual voices of our members into a single, powerful voice. Protecting your interests, defending your rights.
Join us! Make your voice heard. Join OOIDA, the Owner-Operator Independent Drivers Association. Call 1-800-444-5791 or visit OOIDA.com.